You both look nice and full and healthy.
Yeah, very plump.
Is that how was Easter?
Yeah, good, quiet. I didn't even realize it was Easter until the day before. I just think with everything going on, it was. I think a lot of people just sort of, wasn't as big as it normally is for a lot of families.
Yeah.
So yeah,
people not being able to catch up with each other and all of that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah. So, what about yourself? Have you been busy with work and still active?
Look, it's a bit of a funny one. At the start, a lot of people, obviously, because a lot of people lost their jobs, they lost their work, and obviously the uncertainty of it all. So I had quite a few people who stopped at the start.
Yeah.
And it really sort of quietened down. Obviously, because I look after a good majority of athletes, it stopped all the sports, so it stopped, everybody. And I think what happened with that, kind of as time's gone on, like for me, this is like 5th week home. I think what's starting to happen now, people are getting their feet on the ground and they're a bit like, okay, there's a bit more, I'm going to make the most of the time to get my, head together, all of that sort of stuff. And so I actually put a post out the other day to say to probably a bit to Gen Pop, a bit to fighters, because I've seen this happen before where people let go a little bit, and then what will happen is all the bans will get lifted, and then eventually everyone will be back, and then everyone starts piling the door, panicking because they've put on 10 15 kilos, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, now I've got to try and get it all off. Whereas now I think is the time to actually be trying to work on that, especially for those who are chronic dieters, the ones who are just always stripping their food out. This is now the time to actually try and make the most of it. So as I said, for me, it actually went quite quiet, probably by a good 70%. Went really, really quiet.
I would have expected people to, been getting meal prep or fresh meals delivered, because I know it's hard for people to get to the shops at the moment and find groceries. So I thought maybe that sort of meal prepping thing would have gone well for you.
Do you know what? I think it's a funny thing in terms of food, what's happened. As I said, I think because there's so much uncertainty. So this is where people start emotional eating. So that first couple of weeks, when no one really knows what's going on, everything is up and down all over the place. All their routines all the food went out the window. And of course, everyone's panic buying pasta and beans and tomato sauce and all of that sort of stuff. So no, actually, I kind of went right the opposite. It's only now that you're starting to see people actually starting to be able to move forward and think a little bit more about what they're doing with food, the choices that they're making, all that sort of stuff. But I think there was a real shutdown just across the board. But alcohol sales went up.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Just fucking binge drinks. Nah.
Jimmy, the economy.
I'm single-handedly. Give me a sponsor.
Yeah.
I need one.
Doing a good deed.
So weird though, because you think with the virus and stuff, the most important thing right now is to have a good immune system, and the way to get a good immune system is to eat right and get the right foods into you. And everyone sort of just abandoned that and went and pigged out.
Is it just me, or because my local, a couple of local sort of shopping centres, the veggie and fruit aisles were full.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a lack of any of that. It was because you always stay around the outside of the supermarket and you're good. When you go into the centre of it, that's where it was all empty. All, like you said, the pasta, high carb foods, all the little snacks and the frozen meals are all gone. The fresh produce looked like it hadn't been touched. Yeah. And that's where I head. So I was fine.
And even as you say that too, you see, my other half works in produce. So he works in the epi markets. He works on the wholesale side. And the produce industry has absolutely taken a dive, massively. So I actually said, when this first happened, I went, I wonder if people are actually really going to dive into their fruits and veggies now and stuff like that. Nope.
And it's so weird because the number one excuse for people not to do that is because they always say they don't have time. And now everyone's got time to do it. well, 90% of people have time to do it, and they don't.
Yep. So I think it's the lack of discipline that kind of goes along with that. And from all the people that I'm speaking to at the moment, as I said, the first underlying current was really the first couple of weeks where nobody knew what was happening, just that things were getting shut down. And then the panic buyers were causing more panic buying from other people because you want to go get something and then you're like, well, crap, now I have to go and go get stuff because everybody's taking everything. So by the time I'm going to go, there's going to be nothing there. So I think we had all of that sort of stuff going on. As I said, people have stocked up on things that we never had a food shortage problem. We had a restocking problem. We didn't have a food shortage problem, but I don't think a lot of people understood that. Then on top of that, obviously the uncertainty and just the roll-on effect of people's jobs, people getting downturns, it's like playing dominoes, one after the other, Even in our household, I mean, all 5 of us have been home because 2 of them got stood down from work for 3 weeks on forced leave.
Yeah.
Mine, and then of course, obviously the kids. Now I'm homeschooling 2 of the kids as well. So I think everybody within all of that, and I think even for me, that's my patterns of everything that I would normally do, everything just went out the window. So it's like establishing a bit of a new normal. But having said that, it's like what you said, talking about immunity and overall health, all of a sudden I'm like, okay, well, I'm actually home a little bit more. So my kids have had, I mean, they eat lots of fruit and veggies and all that sort of stuff anyway. But now more than ever, everything I'm cooking is all from scratch and it incorporates all of that sort of stuff. As you said the other day, I go, if people aren't eating fruits and veggies, what the hell are they eating? What they just?
Yeah. Well, people went full prepper mode. Like they went. I know. Like pet shops sold out of chickens, so people could. I swear to God, they
got 60 chickens on his house now.
I went to Bunnings. The topsoil, the potting mix was sold out.
Yep.
And people were apparently. So they're going full prepper mode, growing their own veggies. And then, but the produce aisles are full. And secondly, when this is over in a couple of months, that veggie patch is going to be completely forgotten about, and they're just going to.
It's the same with weights. I went to buy some weights the other day at Rebel and like Big W and stuff. I could not get one. I couldn't buy a kettlebell. I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find elastics. I couldn't find. And I'm thinking the same. I'm like, I reckon 10% of those weights are actually being used right now.
Yeah, they're going to be rust in a couple of months when they're just sitting in the garage, no one's using them.
It'd be good. You'll get heat weights on Marketplace on Facebook.
I reckon. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But all right. Anyway, so we had a few questions. We reached out to social media, so we've got a few questions for you, Michelle.
Yep.
So Jimmy, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah. The first question we got was, should you eat carbs before training?
Oh, now boys, what am I going to say? Hell yes.
These aren't our questions.
Elaborate a little bit. Explain why, how it helps, and just for the average person who's not too sure.
What tends to happen, the way a lot of people are eating. So let's say we just talk everyday people, and actually this really does flow over to athletes as well. A lot of people are either, as we said before, time poor. They don't make their meals a priority. They'll make training a priority. So I've got to get in, I've got to do my training, and there's a lot of reward eating that might go afterwards because that's just set them up to, totally cool, I can go and eat this now and not feel bad. There isn't a lot of thought into pre-training unless they've been to a sup store and they've been sold a pre-workout because by that time of the day they're tired, they need to pick me up, and they're relying on that rather than taking a step back and thinking about the food that they're actually eating. So it's not uncommon for me to see someone who gets up and say has a coffee for breakfast, a muesli bar and a toastie mid-morning, then they might have another sandwich for lunch and then go train at 5 o'clock and they're on empty and they can't get the most out of their session. So when we talk carbs, let's say we're just talking higher energy carbs, so we think of our rice, oats, bananas, that kind of stuff, or whether it's supplements like Vitago, things that are, got a good amount of energy attached to them. If you try and make a car go 50 kilometers on 10 Ks of petrol, you're not going to get the best out of it. It's going to die somewhere along the way. You can't make it go. Human body is exactly the same. If you don't have enough in the tank, how do you expect to get the most out of that training session? So yes, for me, just about across the board on everybody, you'd have to give me It'd have to be somebody who is maybe carrying a little bit more weight, maybe going for a walk. I wouldn't consider that a pre-workout, so no, they don't need it. But anybody who's going to go and do any kind of session should have food, well balanced, but carbohydrates definitely before training. If you want to get the most out of your training and you want to train with that max capacity, you've got to fill the tank, and that's one way of doing it.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to touch on pre-workouts. I wouldn't touch a pre-workout if you paid me to.
Yeah.
You don't. First of all, you don't need it, and second of all, when you become dependent on it, it's going to affect your training. I've got mates. If they don't have pre-workout, they will not go to the gym because they think they cannot lift any weights. Yep. And it's all up here, but I've seen them. They're just flat at the gym. They can't lift what they normally lift, but it's all mental. Yep. You know, have a banana with a bit of honey. It'll be 10 times better than any pre-workout. But it's so quick and easy for everyone to have pre-workout. Yeah. I've never touched it. Never will.
How long
before the club on a Friday night? Yeah, I'll smash a couple of pre-workouts, but nah, I don't go out to clubs.
Don't get into a fist fight at the pub.
I need to fight something soon.
I can imagine. The thing is with the pre-workouts too, if you have a look at a lot of them, the majority of them are just really loaded full of caffeine and some other bits and pieces. I always say to people, if you're relying on a pre-workout, you've got to look back and go, why? What's missing? What's missing in your day that you actually feel that you need to have a pre-workout to get through your session?
Probably good nutritious food is missing. So.
Number one. Good starting point.
Yeah, or lack of sleep, a lot of things. So. And probably water's the biggest one for people. I reckon water is the biggest. Because I know obviously water's helps the active transport of nutrients to your cells. So if you're dehydrated, your body's not going to be able to actually take the nutrients from the food into your cells. So if you're not hydrated, if you're dehydrated and you're drinking protein, you're probably not going to get the maximum amount of protein that you should get out of that protein shake or etc. So I reckon, I always try to make sure water's probably one of the main things that I focus on.
I always say if you said that water was liquid gold, if I turned around to you and I said, listen, if I followed along the marketing lines and I said, I've got this supplement and it's going to clear your skin, it's going to help you in your fat loss journey, it's going to make you feel better, you're going to have more energy, your system is going to work overall. Guess what? It's actually free. And people go, well, where do I get it from? And the reality is it's water. It is the most underutilized. I could say to people, drink your water, and they go, what? And I go, drink your water. Like there's people out there who are drinking 200 to 300 mils of water in a day. That's it.
It's crazy. That's crazy.
You get really, really bad brain fog if I do that.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Besides that, how many people are actually then going to the doctors and going, oh my gosh, I've got a headache, this and that. It's like, how much water are you drinking? We're so quick to go either go get a tablet over the counter, got to fix these things. When again, you go back and go, it's something as simple as water, and yet
there he is,
big buffet. Something so simple. So 100% right.
Okay. So next question. So we had a question about almond milk as a substitute over cow's milk, and what are your thoughts on that?
I have no issue with it. You know what? There is not a single food that has not been demonized in some way, shape, or form. It depends on what camp. So my answer to everything is it always depends. It depends on the perspective, what camp someone's standing in. If you get somebody who follows one specific way, they'll tell you that milk is bad. If you get somebody who's more like a purist, they'll tell you it's processed, don't drink it. You're better off making your own. So the answer is, first of all, it depends on what camp you stand in. For me, it's a case of, it's not one. If somebody can tolerate milk, and depending on what their goals are, there's no problem with it. Me personally, I don't drink milk. I love the unsweetened almond milk. I'll go Vita Soy brand, which is the one that's kept in the fridge. It's got virtually not much in it, so never have an issue with it. So there's absolutely no problem. And obviously, it's considerably lower in calories. I think it's like 20, 30 calories for 250 mils versus what you're going to get out of milk. So hence, it depends on what someone's goals are in the first place. But absolutely no problem.
Okay.
In actual fact, it's probably when I give out the recipes for my smoothies, that's one of the bases that I always use. That besides water, got a good flavour.
Yeah. I just always had my issue with it was just that they call it milk. Like I've never seen an almond with titties, you know. So sorry, nipples. Sorry. You know, like call it almond juice or something. I don't know. It's not.
Well,
Yeah.
or they call
Almond
it.
juice. Should be almond juice.
Well, technically, it's nut milk, which they don't put that on there either. But that's what it is. It is what it is.
Next question, Jimmy. Let's go.
What is a good pre-training meal? What would you be your go-to pre-training meal?
Okay, I'm going to put that straight back to you two. What's one of my favorites? What's one that I peddle to everybody?
Is it the rice, banana, honey? Yeah, and it's delicious. It's like people probably think it's so good. I don't know if it's because it was straight after Wayne, but that was like one of the best meals I've ever had.
Yeah.
Me and Jake were just munging fucking rice.
I wanted pizza and KFC, and then as soon as I had rice, honey, and banana, that's all I wanted the whole night. So good.
You know what? When I can't wait, I don't care about food. I care about water and drinks. I don't care about food.
Yeah.
All week I'm like stressing about what I'm gonna eat, and then once I make the weight, I'm just like, give me some fucking water, please.
And nice and cold it was too, wasn't it, Jimmy?
Oh, nice and cold. It was so good.
Yeah.
What are the benefits of that meal exactly? How does it help?
So one of the things I usually do is put rice, banana, honey, a bit of salt on there. Sometimes we'll mix egg white in there as well, just for the balance of obviously having protein. When you pair fructose and sodium together and glucose, you can increase the body's uptake. So by combining them all together, it goes from, say, your intake of carbohydrate uptake is about 1 gram per minute. This increases it to 2 to 3 grams per minute. So sometimes we pair it with caffeine. So I've done this when I was doing it with some of the AFL footballers pre-game. So we were doing exactly that, but pairing 100 milligrams of caffeine with it as well. So it's just the combination of everything works synergistically, so the body can get more of it in that same amount of time. And everybody likes the flavour.
That's really good.
It's an unusual one. It's one that, I mean, how many times you guys have all done it? I say it and everybody just looks at me and they go, what? Okay, just try it. And it actually started with my son. We started playing and putting some stuff together, and then based around the rules, by even the fact that I'll say to someone, put some salt on it, and they look at me sideways. I go, just trust me and put it all together, and it works. So, and you know how good you feel after it.
I think that'd be great for kids, for brain food before school.
Yep.
And once they have it, like I said, they probably look at you funny, but once they have it, they like it. So I mean, I used to have rice with like milk and then brown sugar on top of it for breakfast and things. It's probably not as healthy as banana and honey, but it's still, it gives you a lot of energy for the day. Yeah. So I think it'd be great.
That's a very old English.
It is.
Food.
Yeah. All right, we've got another question. I have no idea what it is, but what are your thoughts on a keto diet? Keto diet?
Yeah, ketogenic. Yeah, keto diet. So again, the answer still for me is it always depends. Some people function really well, and again, because nothing is ever straightforward, when it comes to keto, there is almost like 3 or 4 different ways of doing it, right? But the general consensus is that you have carbohydrate under 50 grams. That's your max total in the day, okay? And that predominantly your veggies, more greens, and that you've got slightly higher protein, medium set protein, but higher fat, but still coming from obviously good fats. And this is where there's a bit of argument, because you'll get one camp that'll say, yep, do it predominantly from your avocados and salmon and that kind of stuff. And then you have the other camp that says doesn't care whether it's, all bacon and butter and things all in that way. So there's a real crossbreed as to what keto is defined as. Secondly, as I said, you'll get some people, for me, there has to be a reason. If I was going to give someone keto, there has to be a reason for me to do that. So many people are scared to eat carbs, which is why a lot of people will lend themselves to going to keto in the first place, because they're adamant that carbs are going to make them fat, it's going to make them put on weight. For some people, keto works really, really well. They function really well. They feel a lot clearer in the head, and they still have energy. I'm probably yet to see somebody who is a fighter or in that real high performance sport do it on keto. So, you know, but as I said, for someone else, there'll be a reason. I'm sure there is, that there'll definitely be an athlete out there who does it and probably feels really good on it. But as I said, for me, if it's an athlete, you'd have to give me a really good reason as to why I would go down that path, because outside that, for performance sport, I want them to eat carbohydrate.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's hard when people ask it. It's a pretty broad question like that, because it all depends on the person themselves. Like, you got some people that are quite high in sports that are vegans, for example.
Yeah.
And then I know people that are on vegan diets and they look like they're sick and they're about to cark it.
Yeah.
So I think it depends how you do it, the person's body. I reckon if I tried to do it, I don't think it would work for me. I do days here and there, maybe once in a blue moon, where I'll just do a whole day of just plant-based, and for no other reason than just to get my veggies in. Yep. So I've got no other choice but to eat fruit, veggies, and it's hard. Like, you go to the fridge and you go to grab a yogurt, and then you realize, I can't eat that. And then, so you got to be really careful how you go about it. But so when I do it on the odd day, I feel okay. But if I was to train, have my full workload during a fight camp and trying to do that, I don't think, because no matter how much I eat, I'll eat till I'm full, and then about 5 minutes later, I'm starving again. Yeah. It feels, I never feel like, I feel it as a whole, and it's not getting filled.
Yeah.
Michelle can always tell if I haven't got my carbs in by photos.
I reckon I can tell. Some days you come in and you're just like, you look like you're about to have a snooze on the mat.
Yeah. Flat.
I
get like, I've got looking at you. As soon as he walks in, same thing. You walk in the door and I go, you haven't had this or this, or whatever it may be.
When was it? When we first come back to this camp, I dropped all my food back, and I was looking real lean, and I was like, fuck yeah, this is awesome. I'm like shredded already. And then Michelle looked at me and she goes, you got to start eating more. I'm like, oh yeah, but I feel good. And then
I've got abs. My abs look good.
Yeah, that's exactly. And then 2 weeks later, I thought I was gonna die, and then Michelle's like, well, what did I tell you?
Yeah, you can tell. You can always tell when, I don't know. People look. If people are malnourished, you can see it in their face and in their skin,
and they get a real soft. Like, you actually tell.
Their skin is
probably
soft.
One of the biggest things. Yeah. Even for Jimmy, because you've got so much muscle mass, like, he's so solid. The minute he stops eating now, like from where I met you, being on what did we say, 1,200, 1,500 calories, say, versus going into this camp with about 3,800. But I can tell straight away because he's flat. His body just goes flat straight away. Like, he just starts to run on empty, Just to go back a step, just in answer to that keto too, a lot of things, like whether it's keto, whether it's paleo, whether it's carb loading, back loading, whether it's, vegetarian, whatever it may be, a lot of stuff has been sold as a single solution versus an actual nutritional strategy, right? So that for me is where this becomes very different. For me, I teach people where it's all primary foods and say, right, let's talk all the good proteins, let's talk fruit and veggies, let's talk fats, let's talk all the good carbs and stuff like that. So there's an array of food, and say, right, this is how you should be eating. Everything else thereafter just becomes a strategy to get someone to where they need to go. So like what you say, you might have that day where you're eating all veggies. I might have somebody that's got a low day, and then they might have a high day food. And I've done that even with Jimmy with some foods too, where we've got, right, these days, or particularly in your, for you guys, there's always at least 1 or 2 days out of all your training days that are going to be the hardest versus everything else. And we go, right, on those days, we're actually really going to push a food right up. And then on the other ones, we might taper them a little bit. It's not really doing much or whatever it may be. But again, it just comes back to strategy. So I've had times where, even with people with keto, and again, still depending on the person, where I might use it as a cyclical strategy. So it's in for a certain amount of time to achieve a certain response, and then it comes out and we might go around it a different way. And it's also looking how someone responds to that as well.
Yeah, so it's definitely very scientific. It's not
Yeah.
just about just shoving everything into your mouth. So, yeah. But we could talk about this all day, and I love talking about it. But I want to save a bit for our for a proper episode when we get you into the studio. So we'll probably end it there.
Yep.
But yeah, thanks for coming on.
But I've got one question.
One more question for Jimmy. Yeah.
Who has a better chance of? Does Jake have a better chance to make lightweight, or do I have a better chance to make middleweight?
Oh my God.
I'm not making lightweight ever again in my life.
I'm not making middleweight, but I want to know who has a better chance.
Fuck that, no
Woo.
chance.
Yeah, well, I know that. I was just going to say, I know that Jake won't do it. What's
I
his
don't-
destiny?
I reckon you got a better chance to make a middleweight. I'll be modest and I'll say you got a better chance to make a middleweight. Yeah. You got more to lose. I couldn't do it again.
Yeah.
But you know what? See, looking at both of you and knowing both of you, I know you're not going to go there because we've already had that conversation. Well, I know that the conversation in the background. The reality is that you could go down to lightweight because you know I look after someone who's very similar built to you, who fights it, who can fight anywhere between 70 and 77. And what we do is we tend to sit, if they're going to fight at lightweight, we get them down to about 74, 75. And that's a really good place for them to be. And then we can cut the rest if we need to, right? Still not a huge advocate for it, but we'll do it if need be. So, yes, is it ideal? If you don't have to, then no, because you're strongest.
Exactly, yeah.
You feel amazing where you are. It doesn't matter.
No doubt I could probably make it, but it'd suck. And I don't want to. So I'm not gonna.
Trying to get the weight, not training. And what would Ben Sassoli have to do to drop the light heavyweight?
Chop both his legs off.
How can I answer that one? Ben? He's got it. You know what?
He could.
He did so well in his last camp. Like, he really did. He made such a big effort to get to where he got to.
He kept reminding me and Jimmy when we still had weight to cut and he was on weight.
Yeah, I was the last one. That was like the first time ever I was the last one done cutting.
Yeah, well, this is true. But yeah, no, he did well. But like anything, you know what, guys? Ben's so different from everybody else. He could get there. He's just got to want to get there. And he's just got to give it time enough to keep working to get rid of what he needs to. That's all.
Yeah.
Stop eating fried chicken.
Pretty much.
No more KFC.
Ben Sassoli.
Yeah, no more buckets of KFC.
All right, guys. We'll finish it there. But till next time, thanks, Michelle, for coming on.
Thanks,
Nice to
heaps,
see you
Michelle.
back.
Really
Take
appreciate
care,
it.
guys.
We look forward to get back to work with you very soon when all this COVID stuff is done with. So,
Sounds good. Take care, guys. See
no
you
worries.
soon.
Thank you very much.
Bye.